I call this meeting of the Lakota Board of Education on Monday, March 27th, 2023 to order. Mr. Zink, would you call the roll?
Mr. D.
Here.
Miss Bodie.
Present.
Miss Casper.
Here.
Miss Schaefer.
Here.
Miss O'Connor.
Here. Board, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda, number 2 on our agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Adib. Do I have a
Second.
second? Thank you, Mrs. Casper. Call the roll, please.
Mr. D.
Yes.
Miss Casper.
Yes.
Miss Bodie.
Yes.
Miss Schaefer.
Yes.
Miss O'Connor.
Yes. Board will move to number 3, the administrative update from our curriculum team. Mr. Vogelman?
Yes, I have our interim director of curriculum coming up at this point, Ms. Lori Brown, and along with her team of our elementary director, K6, and our secondary director, 712, Andrew Wheatley, and Christina French.
Good evening. Welcome. Andrew and Christina are going to bring around a couple of handouts.
Okay.
Maybe. All right, so we're here to talk tonight about a team that we're putting together based on the vote that you guys put ahead last fall around looking at kind of a curriculum audit.
Thank you.
So we are creating a team called the Community Curriculum Advisory Team. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, just keep going.
Okay. So this is going to serve as an advisory group to the curriculum team. And we're going to look at identifying concerns within the curriculum, look at our timetable for reviewing curriculum within the committee or the team, and putting those things together and bringing those updates back to the board. So our desired outcomes, as you can see there, we want to investigate and respond to concerns brought to the team in a timely manner and do that in a consistent way. We want to increase communication to the board and have some productive problem solving and collaboration. And we will provide, like I said before, those regular quarterly updates through Mr. Vogelman and his superintendent update. And we will take some recommendations from the team, and I believe each board member is going to identify a person that will serve on the team. So the committee or the team will be the 5 people that you identify, and then the 3 of us. And we will bring in other curriculum folks as needed on those agenda items, but we'll probably meet on a monthly basis. And I do think it's going to be an ongoing team that will continue to meet over time. And so in our first meeting, we will look at our team process, identify some norms, and really identify some look-fors related to any concerns that any team member might bring to the table or a community member might bring to the table. So we're kind of hoping to wrap this into a proactive piece that will bring different curriculum pieces through this team and provide some feedback and recommendations. But we're also looking to be responsive within this team and have a process for how we'll deal with any kind of concerns that come to the table related to any of Lakota's curriculum. I'm trying to think. So what we're asking for here tonight is you have a second sheet here that is the place that you can identify the person you'd like to recommend for the team. And we were hoping to maybe have these back by April 17th and then have our first team meeting around May and start that process there. So the good news is that the team members will have a lot of input on what the process looks like. And again, we're hoping to be both proactive and reactive in how we're dealing with any concerns around curriculum. And we're here to answer any questions that you might have or any suggestions that you might have. But I think that's pretty much it. Did I miss anything? Okay. Any questions?
Mr. Vogelman, did you have anything else to add?
No, I think they pretty much covered it, just knowing that this has been kind of sitting out there for a little bit. And also, I think in talking with them, as they see it as an opportunity also to use for further curriculum as new courses come online, to have a set of eyes about here's a course we're thinking about, take a look at this before we present it out to the public, and have them take a look at things kind of like an on-ramp as we prepare also for, like the program of studies always comes to the board in the fall, and that this group could also be kind of a first lens before it comes to the board to take a look at that program of studies and any new courses that are in the chute, so to say, for what we're considering for future years.
Thank you. Board questions, comments? Anything?
So I have a question, or maybe just a comment. So monthly meetings, would it be helpful, when we first made this decision to do this curriculum, I guess this is in place of the audit, it was a 1 or 2 time thing. Now it's a monthly thing. So my question is, are we supposed to verify that with this whatever person we pick? Or do we just give you the information, you verify, and if that's the case, should we not have like a backup person? I mean, we're asking a lot of some people to, do a monthly, assuming during the day meeting. So if somebody couldn't make it. So that's my first, I guess, question or comment. And my second, I guess, is that this would all kind of act like the business advisory, or when we used to have the finance advisory, that it would just be a monthly meeting to bring up whatever concerns or whatever topics. What I don't want it to be is taking up your time as a curriculum department of one of the 5 people that we choose calling and saying, well, I'd like to look into this today, or I would like this information today. I don't want this to be that for you guys and to get down in the weeds, so.
Yeah, and I would say the first piece of that, the monthly, it can be adjusted by the team. So if the team sits down and decides what we want this work to look like, we may decide it's more like a quarterly meeting or something like that, depending on the needs. And I agree, it is an ask of time, so we tried to make it clear from the beginning that it could be a little bit of a commitment, because I think we would like it to be an ongoing team that kind of just serves as a community voice in some of the decisions that we make and some of the things that we're thinking about. But yes, ultimately I would have someone in mind that may be able to make that commitment, but also a backup if that doesn't work out. We are amendable to the time, and that's kind of our first mission, would be to figure out when's a good time for the team to get together. And
Because it would seem to me that after the first couple, it maybe could go to court. I
Right.
mean, our board committees don't even meet monthly.
right,
So I would think that maybe after the first couple and you establish, you could
right.
go to quarterly.
And we were hoping to use kind of a majority vote situation to kind of figure out priorities
Right.
and ways to spend the time. But yes, once we got some process in place, it will probably run a little smoother and maybe not meet as often.
Okay.
So I would say it's a commitment, but maybe not, it doesn't have to be as much as what it looks like on paper.
So just from my understanding, do we reach out to our person to say, hey, we want you to be on this committee and here's what we think the time commit can be, and then submit the form?
That would be the hope, yes.
Okay.
I think the reason for this, Kelly, is to get down in the weeds. And I would like to make a motion that we have, so I motion that we have 2 people from the community to be on these committees, because again, it is a time constraint, I think, with a lot of people. And I think giving 5 people the responsibility of looking through the curriculum of 23 schools, I think that's a lot. And I think that we should have more community members on this committee. And so I motion to have 2 committee members on the curriculum committee.
So
I
there
would
is,
disagree. Oh, sorry.
there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion dies.
I
Did you
just
have
think
another
too many
comment?
people,
Yeah.
you get too many people, and it isn't
One
their
second.
job to get down in the weeds. It isn't. It isn't.
Go ahead, Isaac.
Okay.
Just saying.
First of all, I apologize. My voice will be coarse because I'm under the weather over the weekend. So this is very, very necessary. We needed this, and that's why we call for it. And I believe that a 5-member committee alongside with the 3 is ideal, because if there are too many people, it becomes, maybe redundant or whatever it is, but it becomes crowded, and the goal will not be achieved. And that is why I did not support your motion. But I understand what your concern is. These 5 men, committee members, not men, committee members is enough. And the purpose is we already know there was a lot of concern about our curriculum. We need to clear that and make sure everything is focused on students' achievement and everything to do with education, and all these uh, distractions be removed. So I believe that the 5-member committee is ideal.
You could have just seconded my motion and had this discussion and
Excuse me, you're
refused-
out of order,
by
Mrs.
refusing
Bodie.
to second my
Mrs.
motion time and time again.
You're
Thank
out of
you.
order. Are there other comments? Mrs. Schaefer, did you want to make any comments?
How long do you anticipate these meetings taking?
Again, we'll kind of gauge the team and their availability on that, but I would imagine 1 to 2 hours.
Okay.
Again, this is where it's hard because some of us were on the losing end of this particular vote to put this committee forward. So I still have many of the concerns I had at that time, but understanding it's the will of the board, I understand we need to move forward with this. My concern remains, again, we've talked about being success-focused with our students and forward-looking, and that I want to make sure that however this is structured, that we don't spend all of our time looking in the rearview mirror of what might have been or what isn't, and what we're chasing down that doesn't exist, versus what the possibilities are for enrichment for our students and what they're learning. So I would just ask that as we move forward, you be very careful with the parameters to respect everyone's time so that this does not become a distraction from the work that needs to take place day to day. So I guess that's my primary concern. Also in the requirements, I read it says that the person needs to have experience in education or a related field. Do we have any further clarification on what exactly that is?
No, I think it's up to you guys if you'd like to make a different criteria, but we were just hoping for someone that could speak to curriculum from some experience level,
Okay.
that would have some background.
All right. Okay. I know at one point there was a discussion about audit background, or is that still something that's desirable?
I mean, that could be great, yeah. And to your point before, Julie, I think that we hope that too, that we can have a good balance of proactive work, but we also do want to be reactive to any concerns that might come up. So we're hoping to balance that time as well.
That's right.
Other comments and questions? I am glad that we're moving forward on implementation of this, and I really like that we've had the opportunity to look at this as a broader piece and something that can be helpful to you as the curriculum team. I see this as I'm not sure what that sound is. I apologize for it. We are not trying to provide percussion, but
It's windy.
it does sound windy, you're right. What I wanted to, it's a little distracting.
Walking on the roof.
It does sound like somebody's up there.
Can you turn one mic off? Maybe that would help.
So creating the ongoing multi-curriculum review schedule, I think, is a really important part of our process. And maybe you can talk a little bit about each one of those top pieces of the overview and what you hope to accomplish toward the reactive, proactive part.
And the top overview section. Yeah, so when we talk about identifying concerns and needs, I know that there's been a lot of discussion about definitions of things and things like that, but I think what we're looking for the team to say is, what are some, what things are you concerned about as a group? What are you hearing about? What are you concerned about? And then also identifying some look-fors. If this were going on, what would we see? What would we see in a classroom? What would it look like on a curriculum document? Those kind of things. And then we've also talked about developing some kind of rubric that we would utilize when a concern is brought to the table, so that we would be able to look through it and say, okay, here's the components that we looked for, and here's what our review looked like, that we would be able to report back and say, here's a thorough review that was consistent and fair of the concern, and that we could be responsive to that. So that's kind of that conduct inquiries part that that's addressed there, and creating that rubric. And then also that more proactive piece is just creating that multi-year look at, maybe in the fall of this year, we might look at ELA curriculum for grades K through 6, or a particular grade level. And the team can help identify what we prioritize as far as when and what we look at first. But it could be a time that, there's no concerns at the table, but let's just generally take a look at math in grades 4 and 5 or something like that. So I am anticipating that our team could develop kind of a timeline that we would get through all of the curriculum over a course of time, and kind of give it a look through and ask what questions we have, and generally look through some of those things. But so I think it's what concerns are we hearing, but also just a timeline of when we'll look at different topics and different grade levels. Does that make sense?
And I think it'll be a great opportunity to look at best practices,
Oh, sure.
both
Absolutely.
statewide and nationally as well. So it's a great opportunity. I support the work. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments for our curriculum team before we move on?
Just, excuse me,
Go ahead.
would it be possible, maybe the first meeting in August, to just come back and tell us how the process went, how the first meeting went, what your decisions were? I mean, I don't expect any report out, just how you nailed down the basics. And
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one of the outcomes we'd like to see, is just that regular communication coming back to you guys. I think that would come through Mr. Vogelman,
Right.
and he would do his
That's
update
fine.
through there, but absolutely, we would do that.
thank you all.
Linda, have a-
Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Also, are there any local schools that have curriculum committees that we might be able to model this off of for best practices, or?
I'm not aware of any that have the particular community setup, but we can absolutely ask and see if there's some structures we can pull from.
I think that might be helpful as a guiding principle for the committee of what has been successful in our surrounding districts.
There are other districts, I'm not sure about locally, but there are other districts doing curriculum review committees, so.
I think we should also look at the rating of the schools that we are partnering with, and make sure that they have a high rating on the report card as well.
We can
All
definitely do
right,
that.
any other comments? Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Thank you, Mr. Vogelman, on that.
Just ask for patience as this is new. Let them get their feet under them as they work together on it. I appreciate the work that they're doing to try and make this come into existence.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We'll move to number 4, board action items. A, motion to approve the second read of board policy 0169.1. B, approve the MOU between Lakota Local School District Board of Education and the Lakota Education Association. And C, approve personnel items. Mr. Vogelman, Mr. Zink, do you have any comments on any of those?
Should we make a motion first?
Do you have any things we need to know before we make a motion?
Just on the 0169.1, there is a AG that has been developed, as was asked in that policy meeting when we went over this policy. It's 9120F, and it's out there. It's basically the same as 0169.1 minus the restrictions on what you can talk about, minus the time frames in which we were trying to get more. We extended the time from 30 to 45, extended the amount based on how many sign up, where it could be the 10 for 30 minutes, or it could go as much as 22 if we give them 2 minutes, depending on how many people sign up. And so the policy and the AG are very similar. You just take away the time components, and we don't limit what topics can be discussed. And so that's out there for people to view and see, and that's what was asked when we went through this, of having that AG out there. So it's out there for people to take a look at and see. It's very similar to the 0169.1. Talks about have to register in advance, have to be a resident, same things that you would read here. So.
Madam President, I think we need to make a motion before we have discussion.
Did you have anything else on B and C?
On the MOU was discussed in finance team back in February. based on some feedback from our ADs, and for number one, some 3 key areas that are very high profile, as we've had some turnover there, and seeing that we were in the lower half of the GMC in those positions that are very high profile, in which those coaches are expected to do summer camps, possibly do some radio shows, are very out there. And so as a retention issue as well, to keep the ones that we have that are bringing us some great attention in positive ways, and keep them in place. And then we had a special, unique situation for number 2 on the MOU as well, which is a rarity, which we had a coach who had passed right as the season was to begin. And so those responsibilities don't go away. They're still there. And how can we take care of those responsibilities with the current assistants who have to take over those responsibilities and continue with their responsibilities as well? So we worked with the union on developing this to get us through.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Wilkerman. Anything, Mr. Zink?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Board will take a motion to approve A through C.
I motion to approve A through C, and I would like discussion afterwards, please.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Go ahead, Mrs.
I
Bodie.
would like to separate A from B and C. I motion to separate A from B and C to take 2 separate votes.
So you just need to make the request. It wasn't necessary to make a motion on it.
Well, I motion.
I'll separate out A. Any further discussion, Mrs. Bodie? We'll vote on B and C first. Hearing nothing. Board, any further discussion on B and C?
I appreciate you doing the research to let us know where we were relative to the rest of the GMC and making those adjustments so that we can retain quality coaches. Thank you.
All right, anything further? Mr. Zink, please call the roll.
Ms. Bodie?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Adi?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes. Board will go ahead and vote on A. Motion to approve the second read of Board Policy 0169.1. We already have a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
Yes.
Mrs. Bodie?
This policy is more convoluted minutia. It should not be that complicated to go before the board. You have no idea what it means to be transparent, and there is a reason for the complexity of this policy. I understand that this is how it's going to go until we get a new board.
So further discussion.
I guess I want to talk about, I know you talked about that, if we could potentially extend it to 45 minutes, it could also be 30, it could be 3 minutes, it could be 2 minutes. Can we have a little more discussion just so I'm clear on where we currently are? Will people be notified ahead of time? I guess I'm still unclear with what is intended with the administrative guidelines in that area.
In the guideline, it says that the listening session will be 45 minutes.
Okay.
And so if you have 10, you get your full 3 minutes. But if we get 20 to sign up, we want to be able to get the 20 in. So we would slide everybody to 2 minutes. We wouldn't do the first 8 get 3, and then the remaining 12 get 2 minutes. We'd make them all 2 minutes. That way we could get everybody in. And that would be on Adam and his team when notifying those individuals that have signed up of whether they have 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
Okay, so they will be notified ahead of time.
Yeah.
It won't be just when they walk in.
No, I'll do it the same way that we've been doing it.
We also have facility meetings that we're going to need to reschedule. I'm assuming you all are going to vote for this because you like to shut down the community. So we need to rethink about our policy or our facilities committee and rescheduling
Mrs.
that.
Bodie, your personal comments directed at board members are inappropriate. We do have
I think
conversation.
they're quite appropriate. Thank you.
We have had conversation in agenda, and we will be talking about the facilities committee meeting, and we're going to move that too. Any other comments, Mrs. Casper?
Did we land on recording, not recording?
There's no recording.
We will not be recording the comments.
Correct.
Okay.
Are you saying that we are not recording here, or
Mrs.
people
Bodie,
are
you
not
haven't
allowed
been
to record?
recognized. Mrs. Casper, are you still talking?
We're not recording the listening session?
We are not.
We are not. Is the audience recording the listening session?
I feel like you're breaking some laws here.
Mrs. Bodie, you haven't
I
been
don't-
recognized.
I
Mrs.
do.
Casper has addressed a question to our administrators.
I have a concern if the recording is one-sided, to be honest with you. Is it possible to do an audio recording, like just bring an iPad and do an audio recording? I mean, I know we don't need to set up a whole separate.
Yeah, we can look into however you guys want to run the session.
I'm just, like I said, I'm just concerned that, I just don't think it's good to have there be a one-sided recording. So if somebody's recording what we're saying, I don't know, maybe I'm gun shy at this point. I overthink it, but I don't know, what does the rest of the board, I don't know, agree,
Mr.
disagree?
Okay, I think, if I remember, when we had this, the policy meeting, the goal is to make sure that we lift everything up so that there's freedom for people to voice their opinion and their concerns to the board. And we also know that there was time limit, so we are separating that so that we're able to have ample time to hear everybody and to make sure that their concerns are heard by the board. So if there's still concern, maybe should we like revisit the policy again, because we're already doing the second reading, and I.
It's not the policy, though, this is the guidelines. The policy can be passed, and then the guidelines can be adjusted, correct, Mr.
Okay,
Goldman?
correct.
That's the
All
point,
right,
that's
okay.
the,
Gotcha.
What is the, I need you
The
guys to
guide-
think.
The guidelines do not require board approval.
Exactly.
So the guidelines are how the policy is implemented.
implemented.
The board just approves the policy. Mrs. Bodie, you had something?
Yes, as a board, I would like for you guys to think about the lawsuits that you're potentially getting us into with not allowing a recording. And we need to look up the policy. When the board meets together, we are always recording. We have committee meetings that are recorded. Everything is recorded. This listening session, there's still a board getting together. We are under the sunshine laws, and we need to be clear that we're not breaking a policy and setting ourselves up for another lawsuit. So the only time, so right now sorry, I just don't want any more lawsuits for our board, and I don't want to spend any more money. And I feel that this is setting us up, and we need to really look into our policy, and we need to see what says that we can pick and choose basically when we have, what is it, when we all together?
All board, there's not a policy that says we have to record when we're all together.
But are we breaking a policy by not recording
No.
one and picking and choosing? I think that there is availability for a lawsuit here in litigation, and I'm not comfortable with not having a recording.
Mr. Vogelman, Mr. Zink, was this run past legal counsel to ensure that we're appropriate?
It was, the advice that we have received from legal counsel was we can't patrol if people would like to record. You know, we're not recording, but if other people would like to record, then, you know, that's up to them. But there isn't any votes going on. It's a
Right.
listening session. There's not a decision, which would constitute we would need to take minutes. in
Please
that.
keep
It's-
in
it's
mind that our
comparable to
attorneys
our
have given us
community-
bad information
It's
in the
comparable
past.
to our community
Nor did I vote for them
conversations.
or approve them, and again, they have gotten us in trouble
Mrs.
in the
Bodie, you're out
past.
of
Hold
order
on.
and you haven't been recognized. So it is comparable to our community conversations in
Right.
terms of the board's attendance. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I'm not saying that we have to record it, I'm just wondering if, I mean, I know we're not recording it, but I didn't know if the audience was allowed to record.
Mrs. Schaefer, did you have something?
I mean, I share that same concern on the recording piece of that something could be spliced by somebody who chooses to record and we don't have any full picture to understand what was actually said versus what has been spliced to be said.
No, that is my concern.
So I do share that concern with not recording on our side, but I think, again, that can be worked out in the administrative guidelines, but I will say that that is a concern I have.
Is there anything further?
Anyway, we agree that
Mr. D?
the guideline, we're going to work out the guideline, so we get that done. At least make sure we have our own backup if there's need for that. But the community need to know that we're creating a forum to hear more from them and give them ample time, and that should be, I think, appreciated. I think the community will like it.
I mean, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mrs. Casper.
I know it seems a little convoluted, and I know that we've often said too that we will continue to revisit. All we're trying to do is have some sense of decorum in our meetings and some sense of being able to hear more community members. I think we can always revisit how we do it.
Madam President, oh, sorry.
Mrs. Bodie?
Everybody knows that you can get the attorneys to sway whatever you would like for them to, whatever you would like to get accomplished, you can sway them and they can find the data to back you up. So if you really wanted transparency, which you wouldn't know if it bit you in the face, then you would allow this video recording. Again, you're playing your games, Linda, and this is making you look bad.
Once again, you're out of order with your personal comments, Mrs. Bodie, but thank you for your contribution. Are there any other comments?
I just think you have to be really careful. You're basically calling an entire 5 law firms unethical. I think you have to be really careful.
I
mean,
know
you
how
are
you play the
allowed,
game.
you're allowed your opinion, Mrs. Bodie, and I am all for that. What you're not allowed to do is treat the rest of us as if we have not a brain in our head because we don't agree with you. Wow. Sorry, I
Mrs.
can't.
Bodie, again. Mrs. Schaefer?
I think, again, and just to build on what Isaac stated as our objectives, I think another objective was to make sure that our meetings were appropriate for our students who we would like to be able to continue to have attend. And I'm hopeful that with this modification, we will be able to increase our ability to have our students continue to highlight their successes.
Very good. I agree with Mr. Adi as well in terms of extending the time, removing some of the restrictions, most of the restrictions from what people can talk about. I think it will be good, frank discussion, and I look forward to it. Is there anything further from anyone before we vote?
The sign-up sheet, we will turn that on at 9 a.m. like we have been doing on Friday mornings.
Very good. Mrs. Schaefer, did your questions on the process get answered?
They did, but I do have one more additional question. Typically, when have our sheets filled up currently when we do not have the extended time? Are they typically full prior to the cutoff at 9 a.m. Monday morning, or have we had additional time? What time, are all the spots full by 10 a.m. if we turn the sheet on at 9 a.m.?
I believe from the signups that we've been seeing that if we were able to take that down to 2 minutes, all the people that would have signed up would have been able to have an opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Anything
Yeah, a lot
further?
of times it was within 10. I think the last meeting, if somebody had registered up to 10, then they had an opportunity.
And that's something also, oh, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
that we could maybe revisit is if we get to a point where we feel like they're not, if we're hearing from the same people or we feel like there's not, I don't want to go down to a minute. I don't think that's enough time. But if we could get to a process where maybe we draw names out of a hat, or if we feel like we're not getting.
We actually ran that past the attorneys during a random draw, and there were some concerns about that as well. So we have had a lot of discussion about the best way to go about this to make sure that we were hearing from as many voices as we could, and that it was a fair process to everyone, and that it was consistent. So we've really done a lot of work, I think, from certainly since I started on the board, from not having consistency when the agenda's released or how we did our processes. This has been much more consistent. So hopefully it will continue to smooth out as we do it. Mr. Zink, did you have any other comments, or Mr. Vogelman?
Just if you do decide about the recording of these listening sessions, there's a lot of work that's got to be done for that, because we were planning on holding these in the cafeteria where there's no
And I
recording
wasn't
devices.
advocating,
Okay.
yeah, video recording.
No, I'm not, I'm talking audio
Any-
recording, video recording that Lakota would do. That we don't have anything set up to do that at this point. We would have to move that to in here to do that. And so
Okay.
part of the reason holding it out there was because we didn't need any recording equipment. It was just the community talking to the board and Adam and I. But if you want it recorded, then we're going to have to do some things differently quickly.
I personally, just from me, I am fine with not, and we'll see how it goes, but if I start seeing, things spliced and
Yep.
misled, then
Gotcha.
we maybe revisit that.
All right. Ready for a vote?
Sorry, taking up a lot of time to think.
No, sorry. All right, board, we have a motion to approve the second read of Board Policy 0169.1. Mr. Zink, please call the roll.
Ms. Bodie?
No.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Adi?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes. Thank you, board. We'll move to number 5. To hold an executive session, moving into executive session, looking for a motion to hold an executive session to conference with an attorney concerning disputes involving the board that are the subject of imminent court action based on Ohio Revised Code 121.22G3. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Schaefer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Adi. Call the roll, please.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Adi?
Yes.
Ms. Bodie?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes. Audience, we're going to move to executive session. The board will come back out to adjourn. There'll be no other action taken by the board this evening. Thank you.